Excellent. So welcome everyone to episode 3, season 1 of the Millionaires Club. Ooh, what could that mean, season 1? I'm already cooking up schemes for the future. My name is Angela, and I am an education specialist with Region 1 Education Service Center, and I work in the Office of College, Career, and Life Readiness with the Gear Up program, and it's my pleasure today to welcome you all to week 3 of our 6-week webinar series on the Millionaires Club. And so let's kind of recap what we've done so far. Week 1, what we did was we talked about how the first step in becoming a millionaire is to earn some money. And studies do show that the more education you attain, more than likely the higher your earnings are going to be. In fact, those students with a post-secondary degree earn, on average, over the course of their lifetime, more than $1 million more than their counterparts that do not have a post-secondary degree. So there's definitely a correlation between how much education you get and how much you can expect to earn. So during week 1, we used the My Next Move website, and we all found a job that's our dream job for the future. And we all put ourselves in the mindset of being a 22-year-old. We chose the age of 22 because more than likely, by the age of 22, most young adults will have finished either a certificate, an associate's, or a bachelor's degree on average. And so we sort of chose that age for our hypothetical simulation. During week 2, we talked about the importance, once you get a job and you get that first paycheck, we talked about the importance of paying yourself first. If you can prioritize saving and investing and doing that first before you set the rest of your budget up, you're going to have an amazingly healthy financial life. And in fact, I've taken one of the slides from our presenters from week 2 that points out that if you could start saving about $200 at the age of 25, you could have, on average, about $500,000 by the age of 65. But if you wait, and some people do, they wait. If you wait until you're around 50 to start saving, you're going to have to save a lot more every month to come up with that magic number. So sponsors, I know you're out there, and I don't know how old you are, but you're not 22 anymore. And you may be thinking, maybe I'm in that category of being close to 50, maybe, I don't know, in your 30s or your 40s, maybe you're in your 50s. Don't wait. Okay, sponsors, this is for you too. Go ahead and start saving as soon as possible. Now we're on week 3, and I promised you last week we were going to get you an apartment. Okay, so week 3, we're going to talk about securing your housing. That's the next most important thing on your budget. One big hint is when we look at all of your housing expenses, together, we want to keep that to about 30% of your overall budget. So how do you do that? Well, don't just take it from me. I've brought in an expert for you today. And in fact, I want to remind you that you're going to want to ask this expert lots of questions. Please be sure to use the Q&A button on your screen. Any questions will come through. I have my trusty co-pilot, Chris McKinney, here. He will help screen for questions, and we will get all of those questions answered. Also, I want to give a big shout out on the podium today. I have with me Mr. Pete Zuniga, Gear Up facilitator, who I'm very grateful that he has introduced me to today's speaker. So without further ado, your expert today is my new friend, David Garate. Remember, in this scenario, you're a hypothetical 22-year-old. Well, I have a real 22-year-old for you who's going to tell you exactly how to get an apartment and stay within your budget. So David, welcome. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to allow you, and I'm hoping we've made you a co-host. And if not, I'm going to do it right now. Perfect. I'm making you a co-host right now, David, so that you can screen share. And let me know if you have any. There you go. Got it. I can see. Yes.
Hello, everyone. My name is David Garate, and today I'll be presenting to you guys renting an apartment, right? So, one second. Okay, so let me tell you guys a little bit about myself. my name is David Garate. Like I said earlier, I graduated from Rio Hondo High School. We're the Rio Hondo Bobcats, right? So I put the bridge up here because most of you guys might know. So I graduated from Rio Hondo High School back in 2017, and I attended Texas A&M University. It was one of the best decisions of my life. I left home 6 hours to attend this university and pursue my education. And so at Texas A&M, I studied. I got my undergrad in biology. Why did I choose biology? I wanted to be a medical professional since as long as I can remember. And so I thought, hey, I'm going to major in biology to help me get into medical school. Well, I will be matriculating into medical school in July. I'll be going to UT Medical Branch in Galveston. So that's a little bit about my education, just a little more personal about myself. As you guys can see, I got my two little puppies right here. They're my world. I mean, they're so bad, but I love them. Then I got my girlfriend over here. And yeah, you guys feel free to ask any questions about my background and my family. I'll be happy to answer those. So let's start moving a little forward. So this is on the left over here on the top left, we have my first apartment. I know it looks pretty fancy. I mean, it was okay, but I'm gonna give you guys some insight on what went in when I chose my very first apartment. So I had never lived outside my parents' home before. So choosing this apartment was a big decision for me. I wasn't financially like completely stable. The only financial like input that I had was from financial aid for the school. So I had to choose something that was very, very clearly within my budget and something that would give me a good location to be near the school. So as you can see on the bottom left, my room was pretty basic, right? Completely white, just, but it was furnished, which is cool, right? It had everything inside. It had the fridge, it had washer, dryer, and everything. But and it had a big rooftop pool, all the fancy stuff that you would think somebody would want. And it came out to a pretty decent price. So to put you guys into perspective, I had four roommates. Why did I select four roommates in for my first apartment? Well, the number one reason was being my finance situation. And you guys have to be aware of this. We can't always have what we can't afford, right? So at this point, I'm looking at first, I come to college, I moved away from my family, and I go, I kind of don't want to be alone. So having a roommate or two would be nice. But then I start looking into the prices in the apartments, and for a one bedroom, it was like 980. For a two bedroom, it was like 800 a month. And I was looking to find something which included all the bills. What do I mean by all the bills? Some apartments, there's very little of them, will include electricity, water, Wi-Fi, everything included into one bill. And that's what I was looking for, some relative stability since I was transitioning to a new environment, right? But so we chose this place and it came out to $499 a month. Now, I learned so much about myself in this very first apartment. I learned so much about what I wanted moving forward because then I realized like there's stuff that I don't use and there's stuff that I prefer to have over certain things, right? So we'll get into a little nitty gritty about that in a little bit. So to compare, this is my first apartment. Now this is where I live now. Now, this clearly has none of the amenities that the first apartment did, right? It doesn't have the big glamorous pool on the rooftop. It doesn't have the great fitness center. There's only like 3 treadmills in this apartment, but it has a dog park. It's nice and quiet and it fits perfectly within my budget. So once I graduated college, to give you guys an idea of what my finances look like, I pretty much so I graduated college and I told you guys I'm planning to go to medical school. So I couldn't find a job with my degree where they didn't require a commitment for more than 1 year. So and I was looking for something more flexible. So I ended up finding a job as a tutor for Texas A&M University and as an instructor assistant for Texas A&M University. So this put my budget at about like 4,000 a month, right? Just temporary while I go into medical school. So I had to choose something that was perfectly within the range of my finances. And these are the kind of things that happen. So my first year, when I rented my first apartment, I paid $499, right? It was something that I thought I could afford, and I did afford it. But now going in completely with no financial aid, now I have to pretty much come up with all the money. So I I'm a little more experienced. I know what the lease entails. I know everything that it has and what it includes. So this apartment right here, I pay 842 a month for it. But here's the catch. 842, but none of the stuff that I had before is included. Now electricity is included. Now water isn't included. Now Wi-Fi isn't included. Now sewer and trash isn't included. Now the pest fee isn't included, right? So this was a big decision for me. And I hope that you guys take this to heart. You know how people say, time, you got time, right? You really don't, you guys. Right now is the time to plan. I was in your shoes once when people told me, hey, you should start planning. And did I take that advice to heart? A little, right? A little, because I'm a planner. But I take it as much as I should have? Did I reach out as much as I should have to my gear facilitator? No, I didn't. And that's the mistake that I don't want you guys to make. That's something that you guys can fix so you guys can have a better transition into your later on lives that I had to struggle a little more because I didn't get all that advice. Right now you guys have the opportunity to reach out to people like Miss Angela, Mr. Zuniga, Mr. Chris, all these people who are like literally asking you guys to reach out and that they're willing to help you. So please, you guys, take this advice to heart. When you guys are choosing an apartment, it is important to consider every single variable. Location. It's important to consider how far you're going to have to drive to the store to get your groceries. How far are you going to have to drive to school? How far are you going to have to drive to everywhere? Because all that money adds up, and that's not money that a lot of people take into account. So those are some of the things that you guys need to consider into your budget so that you don't find yourself in a situation where you can't pay for what you want, right? So let's start getting into the intricate details of what it goes into owning an apartment. So why do people rent? Let's go over this a little bit. Well, first of all, I rented because I had no money, like not $10,000 plus, right? And I had no credit history. So can you put a down payment on a house? Probably not, right? None of us have the amount of money graduating college. In fact, we owe some money because we owe student loan debt and that starts to accumulate interest. So we don't have that money. So you say, hey, and plus you don't know where your plans are going to take you within the next year or so. So this is why renting an apartment is so great because you need something temporary, but something stable and that you don't have to put a lot of money into. So those of you that live with your parents, you don't worry about a lot of stuff. So you use the oven, you use the stove, you use the fridge, you use the microwave. But when those things mess up, you simply tell your parents, hey, can you fix this? Or when is this going to get fixed? And a week later, it gets fixed, and bam, you're back to your normal life, cooking your normal things. And there's no problem. You don't skip a step, right? But that's not how life works. So if you own your own house, now you become responsible for everything that is going inside that house, everything that needs maintenance, and that all costs money. And that's the problem. So by owning an apartment, you don't have that liability. If something goes wrong, you pick up the phone and you call your landlord and they come fix it. You're not liable for all these mechanical issues that are happening. Instead, you just pay a set fee and could be your other fees like your utilities and stuff, but it allows you to save. So you know that situation where I talked to you guys about having roommates and not having roommates. Okay, so had I not had a roommate, I would have had to pay $900, right? About $1,000 for that room. Did that give me any opportunity to save? No, right? But me paying that $499, it allowed me to save almost $400 a month. Those $400 can go to food, can go to your savings. Just put it into perspective, just like Ms. Angela said. Had you saved $200 from the age of 20 some to your 60, you have $500,000. That's a lot of money. And so that's something that you guys got to consider that money goes really quickly, but if you budget it, it can really last. So let's see what are some of the advantages of renting, right? So the big one here is that no maintenance required. Like I told you guys, when something goes wrong, you just call the landlord and it gets handled. Now it may not get handled that day, but it's going to get handled, and you're not going to pay a penny for it. So that's a big, big, big plus, right? And more money for entertainment or savings or investments, right? So you are allowed to save your money and use it to make it grow, or just to make it accumulate, right? So those are some of the great benefits of having an apartment, is that you're not liable to damage, and liable to damage that's already done, right? You are liable to the property damage that you do yourself, but you don't have to put a big down payment. So for a house, you're looking at a down payment at about $7,000 to $10,000, right? But for an apartment, the most that I've ever had to pay is $300, and that's just a direct, like a deposit for the apartment, so you can keep it, and then the money goes in somewhere else, right? So it's amazing. Now, do you have enough money to pay for a lease? I mean, for the amenities like a gym. Do you have enough money to pay for a pool? No, right? So these are the kinds of things that come with apartments, which make them attractable. So anytime you want to go to the gym, instead of having to drive to the gym, you just simply walk, and you just save yourself a couple of bucks on gas, a couple of bucks on probably some water, because you could just walk home and get water. So these are the kinds of things that add up over time, you guys, but we don't realize it when we're leasing apartments or making life decisions like getting a house. Now, what are some of the disadvantages? And I know these are big for some people. So privacy was a huge one for me. I mean, when I was living with my four roommates, it was like I couldn't get away from them. So I'd get up and use the restroom, I'd see my roommate. I'd get up and eat, I'd see my roommate. I'd talk to my mom on the phone, my roommate heard my conversation. He said, "What's the problem that you're having with your brother?" Like, can't have a conversation, can't have a disagreement with one of my girlfriends. And then not only that, you have to deal with their cleaning habits, you have to deal with how they like things done. So yeah, that's one of the disadvantages, that you know what, you do have to accommodate more to other people and to the way that they like to live. But is it worth the $400 that you're saving? It was to me, because I had no money. So that's the reason why it was worth for me. So that lack of privacy with roommates and all that it entails is kind of big for some people. Now, what's another one? You are responsible for everything in your apartment. Your lease will state that you're liable to any damage that you do yourself. So if you like your walls a certain color, you can't paint the walls a certain color unless you're willing to make them look exactly the way they looked when you walked into the apartment. So if you don't, then you're liable to all those fees. And not only that, you're liable to what they say it costs. So that's a big thing about a lease, is that everybody sees a lease is like 15 pages, but we only, as signers, we only sign 3 of them. And we say, "Oh, it's all good. Everything's perfect." But when something goes wrong, you go, "Hey, where did this fee come from?" And it was because you weren't aware that it said it right there. This fee, if you do this, it's $150. Now, you guys, I don't know about you guys, but I don't have money just laying around for me to pay those fees. Obviously, I have my savings, right? But those savings are for something else. So those are things that you guys have to consider when you're signing leases or signing different contracts, right? And what's another big one? Okay, so um, when right now at this current moment, I told you guys I live in a 1 bedroom right now. It's A21. I pay everything separate. Do I still have my privacy? I have some privacy, but believe me, when my roommates fight, I can still hear them. Not roommates, I'm sorry, when my neighbors fight. They live right next to me. You can still hear them. But is it as bad? Do they hear my dogs cry? Yeah. Do they hear my dogs bark? Yeah. So everybody has to put up with it, but it's well worth the fee. None of us graduating college, unless you invested in Tesla when it was barely coming out, you probably don't have enough money to buy a house right now, right? So that's just something that we're probably going to be moving into, because we are at 22, 23, 21 even. You're looking to move to different stages of your life, and different stages of your life may take you somewhere else, may take you to a different location, which is super important in renting an apartment, because it allows you that flexibility. You don't sign a lease for 30 years like a house. You don't sign a mortgage for 20, 30 years. but a lease is only 1 year. And we'll talk about the terms of the lease in a little bit. So for a lease, you have either a 6-month lease, an 8-month lease, even 10 or 12-month leases, and 15-month leases. You have to realize that you have a big decision to make. If you see yourself living there for 1 year, you could get the rate for a 12-month lease. And you getting the rate for a 12-month lease is going to be a lot cheaper than you getting the rate for a 6-month lease because they want to collect your money. So you have to make a big decision and plan your life accordingly as well. So you have to say, do I have enough money to continue to pay this for 12 months? Do I have enough money to continue to pay this for 15 months? And am I going to be using this? So it's big because it can save you big in the long run, or it can be bad because you end up leaving, but you still have to pay off that lease. Because if you sign for 12 months, you're responsible for making those 12-month payments regardless. So it's a big, big topic, and you just have to plan that correctly. What are some other restrictions? So apartments usually give you 2 parking spaces. Now, if you're someone who loves to have people over, I know I am. I like to host parties at my apartment, like little get-togethers. Not during COVID, you guys, obviously, right? But so when I invite 10 friends over, they say, "Hey, David, where do we park?" Well, there's nowhere to park. That's the problem. You got to go pick them up because where are you going to park? Now, if you have a house, you can park everybody, but in an apartment, it doesn't work that way. So they have certain restrictions where you can only take 2 parking spots up. So that's kind of a downfall. Now, another downfall is your money going to anything. Your money is not building any value. You're not investing this money into an apartment. This money is lost once you're living there. In a house, you're paying and you're paying and you're paying. But then again, you're all liable for all the damages. You're all liable for all the taxes. So you have to choose what kind of lifestyle you're going to be living within the next few years, right? So those were some of the disadvantages. Now let's talk about some of the important items in your lease. So the most important one here is obviously how much your rent is going to be, and when is it to be paid, right? But another very important one is the utilities included. This is extremely important because if you have a lease that says you're going to have to pay a monthly rent of $600. Now, does that include heat, electricity, TV cable, internet, sewer, water, and trash? We don't know, right? Unless you actually go into your lease and read those terms. So to give you an idea, electricity will cost about, I don't know, in an apartment or 1 bedroom, you're looking at about $60 to $80 where I live, right? $60 to $80. Now, internet is $60. Water is like $20, $30. Trash is another $6. Sewers are another $4. So that easily accumulates to $100 to $120 easily, right? So these are the kinds of things that I do have $400 to pay for the month. And then they add those $520. Do you have that money really? And why is it so important that you look at all these terms, you guys? One of the most important things in your life is going to be credit. So you do not want to get yourself into a situation where you can't pay and the apartment tears apart your credit, because it'll take about 10 years for you to reform that credit. And credit is what people know about you. If you're creditable, then they'll let you get a car. If you're creditable, then they'll let you get a house. The credit is so important when signing leases. And I didn't know about this in high school, really. I wish somebody would have told me, hey, you need to start building your credit. Because at the end of the day, it tells companies and it tells people who are going to invest in you what kind of person they are. It doesn't matter if you're the best human being on the earth and you have bad credit, they're not going to lend you a dime. And everything that they lend you is going to be so high interest. And a lease is one of those things that can tear apart your credit if you don't pay it right. So let's choose correctly. Let's take all the information that we're given and actually make a choice that's going to be beneficial for you. So those are some of the important items in your lease. The lease start and end date is especially important. I talked to you guys about the duration of the lease, and take these things to heart, you guys. Let's see here. So another very important thing in choosing an apartment is, what do you want and what do you need, right? So if you need a lot of space because you have probably kids, or because some people do have kids by the time they finish their collegiate career, right? So those are things to consider. How much space do you need? Look at the square footage of the apartment. Do you want a yard? Do you want a balcony? So these are things that you need to consider. Do you need multiple bathrooms? Now, one of the most important things for me was the I needed in my early college career, I needed it furnished because there was no way I could bring my stuff. But once I graduated college, I said, you know what, I can buy some of the stuff. I can afford it into my budget. So the unfurnished part really didn't bother me. Now it's got to depend on what you want. Do you want an apartment fully furnished with a bed, with a, with a stove, with a fridge, with a washer and dryer? So how many of you guys have $2,000 laying around to buy your own washer and dryer? Not me, right? So that was very important for me to have, for my apartment to have, because then without it, what am I going to do? Am I going to wear the same clothes every day? That's impossible, right? So that's something for you guys to consider as well. Now we're about to get into one of the most important topics, which is renter's insurance, you guys. I know nobody wants to pay the renter's insurance because it seems like you never use it, but believe me, you want to have it, you guys. Don't, no matter what, get it. I know you think that it can never happen to you, but it can happen to you. And at the end of the day, you are liable for, if a fire goes off in your apartment and you don't have that renter's insurance, you are going to be liable to pay every single dime it takes to repair that apartment. But if you have renter's insurance, you protect not only your stuff, but you protect yourself from a potential lawsuit from the apartment. So please, you guys, it's it's better safe than sorry, right? Um, but that's going to conclude my presentation for today. I'll be taking questions from you guys, whether it be about my background, whether it be about college, whether it be about anything. Please feel free to ask.
Let me unmute myself. Thank you so much, David. And so students, if you want to put any questions using the Q&A button, right now there are not any open questions, David. I'm hoping somebody will think of some questions to ask you, because students, I could tell you all about my experience renting an apartment, but that was a long time ago. Okay, it was like 1980. That's, yes, do the math. Okay, it was a really long time ago. And I think David is much better at answering specific questions. David, let's give everyone a few minutes to see if they have a question. And while we're doing that, one thing I would like for you, if you don't mind, if you're okay with it, you came from a really small town, Rio Hondo, and you went to a huge university. I think Texas A&M, the last time I looked, they have about 40,000 undergraduate students and about 20,000 graduate students. That's 60,000 students on campus. If you can talk a little bit about what helped you transition from the Valley, a small town environment, to such a big campus, because you've done brilliantly. We're super proud of you, but I know it wasn't easy. If you could talk about that for a little bit, I would be very grateful.
Absolutely, Miss Angela. So, like you said, I grew up in Rio Hondo, and the predominant culture and ethnicity in the valley pretty much is like 90% Hispanic, right? So moving to Texas A&M, it was a hard transition because I was so used to sitting in class in Rio Hondo High School with 20 people in my classroom. So everybody knew you. Oh, that's David. All good, right? That's David. But it became, when I sat down in my first classroom, I showed up, by the way, 2 hours early to my first class because I said, you know what, I got to succeed, right? So I'm going to do whatever it takes. And I remember class started, and I remember a class started in the auditorium that I was sitting in, and I showed up so early that the it was the class before my actual class started. So it was a mess. But when I sat down, it was like all these different people from different places of the world. I didn't know anybody. I was just there by myself. And it was 300 and something, 330 students in that auditorium. And it just felt so impossible for me because you hear people talking about, oh, I did this in the summer. I'm disqualified for this and I'm already doing this. And you're just pretty much a kid who you thought knew stuff, but really doesn't know anything, right? And that there's so many more like people who are more skilled and know more things than you. So it was a hard transition because I have just left my family, and now we're going to a way harder classroom level setting, right? So, like I told you guys in the earlier presentation, I took my first exam. I thought I studied so hard, 50, like 56 or something. I'm never gonna forget the feeling. I literally like just wanted to crawl up in a ball and cry. But I said to myself, I called my family, and you guys, I can't express the importance of having such a strong social support system. Because when you make a transition like this, especially being from a very like tight knit Hispanic families, my parents didn't want to let me go. They begged me to go to UTRGV. Mr. Zuniga knows this, and he was like, David, you need to go to Texas A&M. You need to go no matter what. And I said, all right, I'm gonna go, right? And my parents were like, oh no, maybe you should come home. And I said, no, I can't come home, like I have to do this. And just having to persevere and believing in yourself more than anything, and allowing others to help you, growing as an individual, immersing in, like talking to different people from different cultures, from different backgrounds. That's how I made friends. And that's how I was able to study with different people who thought differently than me, that helped me think, helped me, adapt. So those were some of the things that really made me the individual that I am today, was really believing in others and believing in myself and allowing my family to help me as well.
Thank you, David. I noticed. I'm gonna ask you to mention it again. I noticed your ring. You're wearing a really nice ring, and so I'm going to show everybody your ring. It's a cool ring.
Yeah, so this is the Aggie ring right here. This ring right here, you guys, will open up so many doors for you. And I know that, UT has their rings as well, but it's not as cool as ours, but I'm just kidding. But, like I've known so many of my friends, because so many of my friends are engineers. And so like biomedical engineers, aerospace engineers. And they tell me, David, we were competing for this position, but the dude who owned the company was an Aggie. And he had strict instructions that if you were an Aggie, you're going to get the job. And I was like, no way. And he was like, dude, I got the job. I'm signing for 130,000 starting. I'm like, wow, like, and that just goes to show you, you guys, that you can put in work wherever you want to go. You belong where you get accepted. And if you put in the work, you're going to reap those benefits. So this ring right here, you can earn it. After you complete 90 hours of undergraduate hours, you will earn this ring. And the moment that you earn this ring, so many open doors will come to you, so many opportunities, because anywhere you go, they're going to respect you, and they're going to know that you're about business and that you can get the job done because you're resourceful and because you're intelligent. So that was a little bit about, the ring.
We have a question, David, from Monse. How did you know which university was right for you? Did you apply to multiple universities? Did you apply to more than one?
I did. But the way that I knew, and I'll share you guys, I grew up really poor. I knew when my mom talked to me personally, and she told me, David, I'm going to tell you the truth right now. She said, I'm not going to be able to help you financially. She said, I'm not going to be able to. Like, there's just no way. And, my mom telling me that, I appreciate the honesty, because I know the situation that we were in, and I know that she can't help me, So the school that I was going to choose was going to be based primarily on what financial package they were going to offer me. So I was always geared that way, that, what, you go where they really, really want you, and where they're going to show you that support, right? So I went to Texas A&M because as soon as things went through, Mr. Zuniga was like, hey, they're giving you a $10,000 scholarship to start. This is what you need right here. So when they said that, I said, all right, let's go then, and that's how I chose. And obviously I took into consideration that it's one of the best accredited universities in Texas, right? So I applied to UT Austin. I got in, but did they offer me? Did they really, really want me? Not really, right? Because they didn't give me the financial aid package that I thought I deserved, right? So, well, not that I deserved, but that I needed desperately. So A&M opened those doors for me. They said, hey, just to start, we're going to give you $10,000 and we're going to waive your tuition. So I said, okay, let's do it, And so that's how I knew what university was right for me.
Excellent. So I'm really glad to hear that. And kids, I know our topic today is one thing, but this is a great opportunity to get some more inside information on college applications. And so David obviously applied to multiple schools and then looked at the financial aid award letter. And that will dictate what's a good fit. Here's another great question, David. Let me put my glasses on here. Does your credit score greatly affect your ability to rent an apartment? And if so, does it increase the monthly payment of the apartment? Why does the credit score affect who you are? Talk more about credit.
So the apartment is more so like if you apply for an apartment, say they say you have we have, so it doesn't affect the rate that you get, but what happens is you apply for that apartment if you see a rate you like favorable. Now, if you don't have good credit score, they could potentially tell you, you know, we have other applicants and I think that we're gonna go with them. So
Right.
that's what happens with credit score because they'll choose somebody who they know can pay them and that has history of paying them over you who has probably poor credit, and they're going to say no, 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 you need a minimal of this or some criteria that they have in effect in order for you to live there. Now, what else is the credit score? Okay, so you one day you're going to want to get a car, right? You're going to want to get a car, and at that time they're going to run your credit score, and based on your credit score is going to be some amount of interest, which is going to be like, for example, if I wanted to buy a car versus Mr. Zuniga, he'd probably get 10 times less like interest than me. I would have to pay 10, like a lot more than him in order to get the same car, right? So that's why credit score is so important. Anytime you're going to get a loan, you guys, they're going to run your credit and that interest is going to be up the roof. And just to give you guys an idea, so like most people who go to professional school, right? They go for 4 years, right? And you get loans for about $40,000, right? So those loans, just during that time, during that 4 year period, they accumulate over $100,000 in loan and extra. So that's to give you an idea why credit is so important. So do you want to end up paying $100,000 or do you want to end up paying $30,000 in interest?
Wow.
So it's pretty important.
Excellent. Here's another great question. What grade were you in when you applied to Texas A&M?
I was a senior and I applied very early in the cycle because that's what Mr. Zuniga advised of us, and it was the best decision because it got our financial aid packages running quickly. So that entire time, like 11th grade and up, he was already prepping us. He made me. I remember this specifically. He made Ms. Bloom make us write our college essays as a grade in order for us to write those down, right? And so by the time things came around, he said, "Look, you hated me for it, but it's done now. Now you get to submit it to your portal and you get acceptance right away and you got your financial aid package now. Now we can move forward." So it was one of the great things that Mr. Zuniga did for us. And like you don't realize this when you're in high school because you think that time is just in your favor. But time is not in your favor. It moves so fast. You just got to move with it, right?
That's a really great answer, and I think oftentimes what Chris and Pete and I notice is we think we have a long time, but it's here before you know it. And so, students, your Gear Up facilitators will be pushing you, pulling you, encouraging you, making you. It's all good. It's all for the good, and you will be more than likely applying early in your senior year. And maybe throughout your senior year, but I think the better offers go to those that apply earlier. So those are great questions. David, from the bottom of my heart, thank you, thank you, thank you, because no one could have explained this better than you. You're living the dream, honestly. You did great in high school. You've done great in college. You've persevered even when it was tough. You're a great role model for determination and grit. And I want to keep in touch with you. You said you're going to medical school now. Is that what I heard? Congratulations on that. And I hope you'll agree to come back and give us a check-in and let us know how that's going. And maybe we can connect you with the kids to continue so we can follow your journey. I hope we can do that.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for listening and taking the time out of your schedules to arrange this. Like, you guys tell thank you to your Gear Up facilitators because they're the real heroes in this thing. You guys won't realize it now, but you'll realize it when you're in great position 4 years from now. I got to tell you guys, listen to them, apply to everything early. scholarships. I know they say apply to all scholarships, but actually do it, because all that money is actually free and you'll love it later. I promise you. So please, you guys, I believe in every single one of you guys, and I know all of you guys are going to do great things.
Awesome. Thank you so much, David. All right. And so now, students, I'm going to flip the screen over to, I'm going to screen share, and let's work on our budgets a little bit. So David gave you all expert advice on housing. So let's talk about your budget and your housing. So as you can see, I have side by side our Millionaires Club website. Remember, we've already talked about the homepage. During week 1, we talked about career and salary and then saving and investing. And I'm on the tab now that says week 3. I have revealed it. And so we have the week 3 housing tab up. And if you'll also notice, side by side, I have your budgets, your Excel sheet budgets. So let's kind of reorient our brains on where we are here. During week 1, we came up with a job using My Next Move. And remember, in my example, I chose middle school teacher for the Cameron County area. And on average, the annual gross wage is $53,680. You chose your example. You went to My Next Move and chose your dream job in the city that you would like to live in. And you put that amount here. And then we divided by 12 to get what is the monthly amount. And then we used an online calculator to take out an estimate of taxes. And so this is our monthly net wage. Yay. And then during week 2, we decided, okay, the priority is saving and investing. Okay. Honestly, if you spend everything you make, you're going to be going in circles all your life. So we want to carve out a better lifestyle that's financially healthy. In this situation, I chose 5% of my net wage for savings. That's for those unexpected true emergencies. And then I chose an aggressive amount for retirement. I chose 15% of my net wage because remember, we're thinking, okay, I'm 22 years old. I showed you a compound interest calculator. The more you save earlier, the better it is in the long term. So I got a little aggressive on the monthly investment / retirement account. And so now we have our monthly amount to budget. So let's get an apartment. How are we going to do this? So let me scroll down here. I'm back on the website here. Step 9. When it comes to rent, first of all, the first thing I want you to think of is, what do I want to do? Do I want option 1, live at home with my parents? Because that may be an option. It really depends on the home you live in. There are some parents, mine were the type of parents that said, no, you're going to go get an apartment, just the way I grew up. But perhaps it makes more sense for you to live at home. If you're going to choose option 1 to live at home, here's what I want you to do. You can't just assume you're going to live there for free. Okay, if you've gotten a post-secondary credential and you've gotten a job, there's going to be an expectation that you contribute to the household budget. So if this is your option, is to live at home, you need to estimate how much your parents are going to want you to help out. And you need to ask them. Don't assume that it's going to be rent-free. Talk to your parents and see what would be the amount they would want you to contribute. And that would be the amount you would fill in for monthly rent. Then there are 2 other options. Option 2 is to get an apartment and live alone by yourself. David did a brilliant job of kind of going through the benefits of living alone. I think he talked a lot about the privacy. You don't have to hear all of your roommates' drama, and they don't have to hear yours either. It is a little more expensive to live alone. Option 3 is to live in an apartment with roommates. Obviously, that's a little less expensive, and it does have a lot of benefits. You do lose some privacy. So let's find out how much rent would be. There's a hyperlink here to the Zumper average rent tool. And I already have it opened up. When you click the link, it looks like this. And so when you click the link, it says New York. Don't leave it like that unless you're really planning to move to New York, okay? And if you want to play around with this website, you're going to see that it's pretty pricey to live in New York. Let's say, remember when I went to my next move and I put in that I wanted to be a middle school teacher, and then I put in my zip code and it gave me the salary for where I live, which is Cameron County. So I'm going to go with that example. When you do this, I want you to put into this little search bar the city that you want to live in as a 22-year-old. So I'm going to put in Cameron County, and I'm going to go, I've already been messing around with this a little bit. I'm going to put Brownsville. And again, you can put in whatever city you want to live in an apartment when you are 22. And so look at this. Here's all these available apartments in Brownsville. So let me let the page load a little bit. Some of them look kind of basic. Some of them look kind of fancy. Some of them, it's hard to tell from the picture. That just looks like an empty room. Some of them need to up their photography staging skills a little bit. But anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down and we're going to keep on going. And we're going to go down to this part right here where it says Brownsville apartment rent prices. And so what we're going to do is, remember, I'm going to make a decision. Do I want to live alone or with roommates? Okay, if I live alone, I could go with a studio or a 1-bedroom. I do not know why studios are so much more expensive in Brownsville than 1-bedrooms, but I'm going to say the 1-bedroom price looks okay, $588 a month. That could be my price. Or I could go with the 2-bedroom. And if I have a 2-bedroom and get 1 roommate, that means there's 2 people. We can split this in half. So let's go with that option because, again, this is going to be your decision. Don't copy what I do just because that's what I did. Think about what would be best for you. Just to demonstrate, if I were to get a 2-bedroom in Brownsville, on average, they go for about $725 a month. And if you split that between 2 people, I've got my little calculator here. I'm going to divide 725 by 2. Oops, I just messed up. 725 divided by 2 equals $362.50 a month. Let's call it $363. All right, and I got an apartment in Brownsville, Texas, 2-bedroom. Did the 2 come up? I don't think so. Let me do a little better there. Okay. So that's my monthly rent. You could go with a 3-bedroom. That would be yourself and 2 roommates. And if you do that, you would divide with a 3. How much are each of you going to pay? Remember, the more roommates you have, the less privacy you have, but it also becomes more economical. David mentioned his first apartment, there were 4 people total, and that really helped make it more affordable. And that may make the most sense when it's your first apartment and you're just starting out. So take a look at the Zumper average rent tool. One thing too, and I think I did mention it, if you do choose a city that's expensive like Houston or Austin or somewhere like that, be sure that for your salary, when you went to My Next Move, that you had the zip code for that city, because normally cities that have a higher cost of living for apartments, they normally have higher salaries as well. So just be sure that you did that. All right, so we've got that. Now let's go down to renter's insurance. I'm so glad David mentioned it, okay? Because renter's insurance is kind of like, oh man, do I have to? Yes. Okay, on average, renter's insurance is about $20 a month. So we're gonna put that here. You do need renter's insurance. That protects your personal belongings in the event that anything happens to the apartment. And you may not think you own a lot of stuff, but you know what? If the apartment were to catch on fire and all of your stuff were to be lost, it would cost a lot to replace all of your possessions. So renter's insurance is very important. All right, now for step 11, let's talk about utilities. And we have cable, satellite, internet, home phone, gas, electric, and cell phones. We're going to go through these one by one. So for cable and satellite, I'm going to tell you really honestly, your choices are broadcast TV, internet TV streaming, basic cable, or premium cable. And remember, if you're sharing an apartment with someone else, you're splitting these costs. Okay, so think about that. I'm going to put, y'all are going to laugh. I can see you out there laughing. I know you are. I'm going to put 0, and I'll tell you why. I am that lady that doesn't have any TV. I have an antenna. And you know what? I'm really happy with that antenna because I get 2 channels and I don't have to pay anything. But you need to put what is truthful. If you want internet TV streaming, it's $45 a month on average. Remember, if you're sharing an apartment, you would split this between the number of people that live there. Basic cable is around 80 and premium cable is about 125. So you choose what suits you the best, okay? And you know what? I'm going to remember in the previous session, we've done this morning already. A student did remind me that I do pay for Netflix. So while I don't have a fancy cable package, I am going to put in my $14 a month that I pay for Netflix. I'm going to make a note. I have an antenna for my glorious 2 channels, and I have a Netflix account. All right, let's go down to internet. On average, it is about $50 a month, and that is true. Now, think about it. I'm putting internet for $55 a month, but remember, I got a 2-bedroom apartment, so that means 2 of us are gonna split that. So what's $55 a month divided by 2? 55 divided by 2 is $27.50 a month. I'll call it 28. Okay. Let's go down to home phone. That's the old school style of phone that connects to the wall. Does anyone have that anymore? Maybe, I don't know. I don't, so I'm gonna put 0. If you have a home phone, you would need to calculate that in. Cell phone. With cell phone, I do need a lot of data, and I can't split that with other people. So I'm going to go down to cell phone. Unlimited data, that I do pay a lot more for. And then gas and electric. This is accurate. Gas and electric, there are some months it's not much. Like right now, it's very, very pleasant outside. We're not running a lot of air con. And in the summer, it can get really high. So we're going to put an average cost of $163. All right, so this is my budget on housing based on me as a 22-year-old sharing an apartment with 1 roommate, 2 of us living together. And one thing too, I think I said it at the beginning of the presentation, a rule of thumb for your housing expenses. When you look at these numbers all together, you don't want to go above 30% of this number. Let's see if I'm within the right range. Let me get my calculator out. My monthly amount for budget was $27.98 times 30%. That's $839. Am I within that threshold? Yes, I'm on track. This is a realistic budget. Now, when you do yours, think about what lifestyle you want to have and what's important to you. And if you can keep this total, the total cost of living, if you can keep this number within 30% of this number, that's a real good target. Okay, you would get 2 thumbs up from me. All right. Okay, y'all have done a great job. Step 12 is to add these numbers together. This handy dandy Excel sheet does it for you because there's a formula built in. So step 12 is your total cost of living. That's your monthly rent, insurance, cable, internet, home phone, mobile phone, electric and gas, total cost of living. Chris, do we have any questions in the Q&A? Any questions coming up here?
No, ma'am, you're doing great.
Awesome. Either I'm super good at explaining this or you all are the smartest kids in the world, and I believe it's number 2. You all are awesome.
That or food coma, who knows?
No. All right, so this is going to be your journal topic for the week. So this week you're going to write down page 3 in your journal. Here's your journal topic. Why did you select the rent option of living at home, living alone, or living with roommates? David kind of went through some of the pros and cons of each. They're all good choices. There's not a bad choice here. It's what's right for you. So think a little bit about that. There's a lot of benefits to each of those choices. What's right for you? What are the advantages and disadvantages of your choice? Think that through. Later today, we'll be putting the recordings. We had a morning session, it'll go here. This session will go right here. I'll also attach David's slide deck to the bottom of this page so that you can see his slides and get some information about that. And what I'm going to do, which I hope you're doing, is on my worksheet, I'm going to click File, Save, so that I can pick up next week where I left off. And next week, when we tune in for episode 4, we're going to get you a car. That's really exciting. I know a lot of people are super excited about getting some cool transportation. We're also going to talk about food. Now that we have a roof over your head, we're going to get you some transportation and something to eat. So it's been my pleasure to be able to chat with you all today. I want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart for spending an hour with us. Hopefully you're learning a lot. Please take David's advice to heart and stay in touch at all times with your Gear Up facilitator. And please remember, even though this is a simulation, there's a way that all this can come true. Whatever job you chose, your Gear Up facilitator can help you figure out how to take the right courses in high school so that you can get into the right program for post-secondary and you can get the right certificate or degree to get the job, to get this lifestyle for yourself. So talk to them because they're there to help you and they really, really care very much about you. Let me check really quickly if there are any more comments. Hold on just a second. All right. I do see something here. Okay, there is a comment and it's about the price of renter's insurance. It's amazing for what it covers. And in larger cities, it is usually required to sign a lease. This is true. Sometimes in order to sign the lease, they will require you to have renter's insurance. Sometimes they just say, good luck, you're on your own. Well, if they do that, get the renter's insurance. That means you just got to be smarter than they are. But it does a great thing. One thing too, and I'll just add this really quickly. We've got like a minute. There was a question earlier about credit and does it affect your actual lease amount? And I can talk about this. I have a daughter who's renting an apartment. When you don't have any credit, they require a cosigner. Okay. And so when my daughter just started college, I had to co-sign her lease for her apartment. She's now in graduate school and she doesn't need me to co-sign anymore. Yay, because she's built up her own credit. So that means as a mom, I'm not responsible if she or her roommates don't pay rent. They have to figure that out by themselves, but they're real responsible and they do that. But oftentimes credit when it comes to leasing will affect not so much the price of the lease, I don't think, maybe it could, but it also affects if you need a co-signer. And that's kind of an awkward thing. When you're very young, you're gonna need a co-signer, that's cool. But as you get older, you want to be able to stand on your own 2 feet and not need anyone to co-sign. What a co-signer is when someone that does have good credit signs their name alongside yours. And then if you don't pay, they have to pay. So let me give you an example. What if I co-signed my daughter's lease because she doesn't have any credit and then she doesn't pay? I'm required to pay. I'm on the hook for that money. So that puts me into a little awkward position because I'm trusting her to pay her bills. Luckily she did, or I would have, had something to say about that. But it does kind of put me on the hook. So another thing about the credit and the amount of rent for the apartment, it does affect whether you need a co-signer. That does wrap it up for today. Any more Q&A?
Question came in. Yes. If you want to flip back to your spreadsheet, the question is, how do you know if you're not over the 30% threshold?
Got it.
So if you want to go like when it was 27.
Yeah, excellent question. Yay. Okay. So, all right. So here's what I did. And again, this is a rule of thumb. I mean, 30%, it's not like the law or anything like that. It's just a real good financial guideline. Okay. It's just a real good financial guideline. So some people stay under it. Some people may go a little over. Then they're a little bit more sad because they have less to spend on other things. What you do is you put this number, whatever number is on step 8, your monthly money, your monthly amount to budget, put that number into your calculator, whatever it is for you. For me, it was $2,798. And then here, I'll even do it for you, clear. All right, so I got my calculator right here. So I'm gonna put in 2,798. I don't know if you all can see that. And I'm gonna put times, and then I'm gonna put 30%. And the amount comes out to, I'll type it over here so you can see it. 30% I'm going to type it times 30%, and that equals $839. Okay, I don't know if you can see that it's not a very bold font. So what I want to do is I want to keep these expenses, in particular, the total cost of living, I want to keep it below 839 because it's this number times 30%. Okay, and that's what I'm targeting for my monthly housing expenses. Okay, so hopefully that helps you out. Awesome.
Thank you, Angela. Last question. I know we've gone over, but if you're still able to tune in, this is great. What are some things you can do to increase your credit score?
Okay, good question. The number one thing is to pay your bills on time. Okay. The number two thing is actually apply for and get credit. And I will tell you, as a mom, I have a daughter who's 23 and I'm trying to coach her in building her credit. You do need to actually take out some credit card, maybe like one or two. Here's what I've told my daughter: take out a credit card. You're going to eat food and buy gas no matter what. Charge your food and gas, but pay the bill in full every month. Never, ever, ever, I'm shaking my finger at you. That's so rude. Sorry. Never, I'm going to do it anyway though. Never, ever, 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 unless you're just dying or something, never make payments, pay the bill in full. So some things you can do to increase your credit score is to, first of all, be awarded credit, use your credit, pay the bill in full every month. And then as you get older, have a variety of types of credit, like, and for example, a car loan, a credit card, an installment payment. Those are some of the nuances. The most important thing as a ninth grader right now, I don't know if you're allowed to have a credit card yet. If your parents have a credit card and they can put you on with a courtesy card, that's going to affect your credit too, by the way. If you have a courtesy card on your parents' account, if you're fortunate enough to have that. Most kids don't have that, by the way. So if you're thinking, I don't have that, most kids don't. It's okay.
I can just interject. You made a really good point, Angela, and you said open one or two. What I want to stress upon you, and when you do get of age that you can get credit cards, a lot of times if you walk in the mall, they're like, hey, get 10% off or get 15% off if you open a limited card or this card or that card. That every time you apply, they run your credit and it dings you, you lose points. So let's say you start at a plateau of like 600. Every time you apply, if you get 5 cards one day, you walk into the mall and they all, you think you save 15% on each of those purchases, but then you just lost, 100 points in those 5 points. They took 20 points every time they run your credit, or it could even be higher than that. That's a big no-no. So she's exactly correct in saying just do one, work with that one so you don't get lost, when they come in the mail and when it's due, and never miss that due date. If it's due on February 9th, you pay it off on the 7th or the 8th. You make sure, do not roll it over every month, because that's where those big charges hit you when they're 20% rate. You can get a card that has a bad rate. If you pay it monthly, that interest never kicks in.
All right.
Okay, I've spoken
really get 1, 2, no more than 3. And I don't even want you to have 3. Get 1 or 2 credit cards when you qualify, pay them off in full every month, no matter what. And then it becomes a tool. You don't become a slave to your credit card. It becomes a tool for you to use, because once you do have good credit, it's very easy to get a loan when you do need it. All righty. We've gone a little bit over time. That's great. I'm really glad you have good questions. I'm always happy to answer them. And your sponsors all know how to get in touch with me. My email address is here on the website. You're welcome to email me at any time. I would be really kind of flattered if you did. So please feel free to do that. Thanks everybody for tuning in today. We'll see you next week.